Blog Talk Radio.
Provided by bensound.com. Welcome, everyone, to today's Earth Energy Forecast Show on this Tuesday, September 24th, 2019. Thank you for joining us today, or if you're listening later to the podcast. Today, we're going to hear from the angels through angel communicator Ann Albers that the Earth needs your love. Ann Albers is a popular author, spiritual instructor, angel communicator, and modern mystic. Her free weekly Messages from Ann and the Angels reach an international audience with inspiration and tips to help you stay tuned in and turned on. Learn about her free newsletter, books, CDs, and more at her website, visionsofheaven.com. And you can visit her Facebook page at facebook.com/visionsofheaven. Welcome to the show, Ann.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. What a pleasure to be here and to talk about our beloved planet. I am very grateful for the opportunity.
Well, I'm so happy that you're here. It's happy to connect with you again in different ways from what we have in the past. And as I'm speaking, there was just some rumbles of thunder, and the Earth is responding already to what you have to say.
Apparently, because we're getting rain out here too, and you and I live miles and miles and miles and miles apart. So
yeah,
I think
about
this is a
2,500
coordinated
miles
effort.
apart. Yeah.
There's a nice cleansing going on. I know that's really funny because it rarely rains in Phoenix, Arizona. So we're in sync here. And the angels are grateful for your show, grateful for the work you do, grateful for everyone who cares about this planet because in a way we're cells on this body. And
exactly.
The health of ourselves means that Mother Earth is healthier. Her health means we're healthier. So it's just a beautiful thing you're doing. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Ann, for always bringing through the highest vibration of love and light.
Yeah.
And we certainly need a lot of that. And you're talking about cleansing, and this week astrologically is a big cleanse too. So.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's perfect timing. Yeah.
A lot of, the fears, as you were sayy. Yes, purging the fears.
Yes, we were talking. We were talking before the show, and that it's been an intense year. I see patterns in my inbox because I get thousands of emails every week, and it seems like it's been a year where everybody is facing whatever it is they've tried to avoid in the past, whether it's a fear, whether it's a feeling of desiring something new. It's like whatever's inside of us is coming up and out, and that has to do with, of course, the energy fluctuations, astrology. But the angels say it also has to do with the fact that we live on this very conscious, very alive, very beautiful being that we call Mother Earth, and she is a being, and she has a consciousness. And the angels say that the fighting and the bickering that's been going on in the world is really hard on her because it blocks the love. And if you can imagine, the Earth has a circulatory system and a respiratory system physically, like we do. It has circulation in its core and in its waterways. It has respiration through the trees and through the living beings, and the rocks even breathe to a certain degree. So Mother Earth has all these physical systems very similarly to what we do, but she's also got a spiritual circulatory system. And we do too. We have an energy system. I think, most of the people watching the show are familiar with the human aura, the human energy field. Science is starting to get a bit more able to measure the fields around people and the fields generated by the heart, for example. So we have energetic systems, but so does the Earth. And the angels say, and the energetic system of the Earth depends on us, allowing the love to flow through us for good circulation. If our cells, for example, they're starting to show that cells are little batteries. They have a minus charge on the inside of the membrane and a positive charge on the outside. And science knows that if our cells lose their charge, they become weaker, they become less able to function properly. Likewise, if we lose our charge and our ability to connect to the source and to love, we become weaker. And we are cells on the earth, and it's our circulation of love being blocked that actually, in a sense, is contributing to the weakening of her aura as well, and to the fissures that are forming in the earth, and to the earthquakes and the possible volcanoes and all these other disasters that are, regular in a certain sense, but they seem to be intensifying a bit here. And the angels say Mother Earth would very much like every human being on this earth to, if they could do only one thing, to stop attacking themselves, to love themselves a little bit more, to be a little kinder
it's all
every day.
about
Because
that.
Yeah, because if everybody could allow that frequency of love to flow through them on a more regular basis, collectively, we are the cells on the body of the earth. Collectively, we allow that higher vibration to flow through us into her. Otherwise, what's flowing through into her is not loving. It's, a lot of hatred and anger and bickering and all of that. And so she's full up with, denser energies. And those denser energies, I think we know what they do to our own bodies. When we're under stress, we feel like we're going to pop. Well, she's at that point too. So she's not going to kill off humanity or anything, but the angels say there's a lot of pressure that's building up inside of her, and a lot of cracks, if you will, that are building up inside. And we can solve some of them physically, but it's more important that we work on the inside out first, and that we make a commitment. Go ahead. Sorry.
It really is about self-love when you boil it all down.
Yeah, I was in a gathering. My friend Summer Bacon, whom you know, she channels in a deep trance, and I got picked to ask a question in one of her open sessions, and I just said, what else can we do for Mother Earth? And the angel that comes through her said, imagine Mother Earth lives in your heart as an energy, as a consciousness, because just like, for example, the angels say this might be hard to understand how things are energetic and live inside of you, but they said, think of a song you like. A lot of people sing Christmas carols and know the song Silent Night. Well, 7 billion people could all sing that song all at once. It could live inside of each one of us all at once. And they said, so the earth has a physical manifestation, but she also has an energy that is associated with her. We can imagine that in our hearts. And then they said, do something simple. Take a breath in, bring that love and that energy into the earth in your heart. And then they said, release it. And the angel that comes through my friend Summer Bacon just said, there, you've done mouth-to-mouth resuscitation energetically from Mother Earth. Just by breathing.
Sounds like something. Yeah.
Yeah. So just by breathing. So we can do a lot. We feel helpless because we look at things from the outside. We think of ourselves as being small and only being able to affect a small area. But the thing is, when you see yourself as energy instead of a physical body, that's where we have far more impact, because a strong, loving signal can broadcast, for thousands of miles. Look at the radio towers. They're not huge compared to the areas that they broadcast to.
And your heart's electromagnetic field is the largest broadcaster of the body.
Yeah, absolutely. Heart math is starting to show, the coherence between the earth and the heart, and it's beautiful research they're doing.
Yeah, and, what you just explained sounded like the simple coherence technique from heart math, to breathe in and out through your heart and to feel appreciation. And actually, I did that the other night at a talk that I gave, and it was International Peace Day, so we sent the energy of peace out to the planet, but you can hold whatever intention, and they do it on a monthly basis on full moons. So, yeah, I mean, it's proven.
Beautiful work.
They have the data to show that our heart's electromagnetic field is connected to the earth, and when we can get together and send out that same signal, we can affect it. That happened on 9/11.
Oh, that's true. Absolutely. Yeah. And so it's just, it's a beautiful thing that science and spirituality are really starting to validate one another. And the angels say, so rather than being afraid of what might be coming, they would prefer that we create what's coming, because we have a say in it. They said, suppose you have a cell in the body that's a little sick, The angels say it would ask for what it needs. That's self-loving. It would ask for its nutrients, and it would ask for help, and it would try its best to become healthy, knowing that its health contributes to the health of the whole. It would just sit there and go, oh dear, what if the body dies? Then I'm going to die. It's going to work on creating life and health. And the angels say, so for people who are fearful of earth changes, a couple of things. Number one, they said, remind yourself that you have some say in this. You can create differently. And you also have say in your own life, and you can make a determination. I do not want to be involved in any serious earth changes, and I want guidance away from them should they be, impending. And I said that years ago, and we don't really have earth changes in Phoenix, Arizona, but this is a funny story. One weekend, or actually, no, it was like a Tuesday, my grandfather, who's in spirit, showed up, and he said, when are you going to go, play in California and go to SeaWorld? Because he knows I like the dolphins, and I talk to them and send them love. And I jokingly said to him, get me airline tickets and I'll go this weekend. And within an hour, the client who's a flight attendant called and said, I've got an extra buddy pass that has to be used up before next week. By any chance, would you like to go to California this weekend? I can't go. So I said, sure. And anyhow, to make a very long story short, I was in California enjoying the dolphins while an incredible macro burst, unlike anything we've ever seen in our neighborhood, showed up. 60-mile-an-hour winds plus, and so up to 90-mile-an-hour gusts sustained for hours, torrential rain. My roof blew in. The tree got knocked down, and I'm in sunny California playing with dolphins. And I came home, and, of course, the insurance took care of everything, and, I was fine. But it's just an amazing thing that we can control, not by physically controlling, but energetically, making a determination. I would very much not like to be involved in anything like this. Now, some people like to be involved. There are those who love to ride out hurricanes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There are people whose
Storm
lives are
chasers.
immensely,
yeah.
They're excited by it. So I'm not saying this is for everybody, but I personally like peace. So I've intended that. And, even we were talking about the storms that we're both having. I went outside right before your show, and I put my arms up, and I said, I love you, dear weather, and could you please be calm over my house while we're talking? And the sun came out while it's dark all around. So, I'm sitting in this puddle of sunshine at the moment. It's hilarious. And collectively, we're all much more powerful. That's just one person, but collectively.
Yes.
Collectively sending love, intending peace, being grateful, being kind to ourselves, all those things will they are the calm in the storms and the earth changes.
Mm-hmm. It is the group
so the
energy.
Angels, they don't fear.
Definitely.
Yeah. So they'd rather us not fear. They'd rather us create.
Okay.
Because they said everybody incarnates on this planet knowing full well what the possibilities are. Before we're born, we make travel plans. They say it's not etched in stone, but we have some basic idea of what we're getting into and what lessons we're choosing.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, and yet at the same time, as we become more conscious and more aware in our bodies, we have more choice. And we learn that we can create other things. So say you said, well, I'm going to go to Earth and I'm going to live through a tornado because then I can be a beacon of inspiration for others. And then you get down here and you say, you know what, I've been an inspiration my whole life. I don't need to do that. And you make those choices, and that determines the outcome. So they're trying very hard to help us understand that Mother Earth is urgently in need of love to keep herself, from splitting more. But at the same time, not to be fear-mongering and not to try to make anyone panic, and to help everybody realize that, we do have far more say in what we experience than we might understand.
Mm-hmm. Now, when you channel the angels, do you know what angels you're channeling, or is it a group energy, or?
It's a funny thing. I work a lot with Archangel Michael. I just resonate with him. He's very direct, and I'm, I was born in Aries, so that works. But depending on
very much Aries
the
energy.
client. Yeah, depending on the client that's with me or the group, other angels are always present. Everybody's got their own guardian angels. Everybody has, maybe the bigger ones that they work with. And I just adapt. Sometimes I end up speaking to people's deceased dogs. You never know. Sometimes they're the spirit guides. Sometimes they're remarkably wise beings who come through and give me amazing information. So
definitely.
I tend to be open. And there have been times when, Jesus just told me to put my hands over clients and they needed love or healing. So I basically surrender. There's so many
Mhm.
benevolent beings and angels to help us that the angels just plead with people. Don't think you're alone. Even if you don't know, if you hear us or you don't know if we exist, give us a try. Just say, okay, angels, I need help with this and that, and let's see what shows up.
Mhm.
And I've
So
had
I'm
people who
curious.
experiment.
Okay. Uh-huh.
Oh, no, that's okay. Go ahead. You're curious.
I'm curious as to how you got started doing this.
Oh, that's quite a story. I was an avionics engineer. I graduated from the University of Notre Dame with a double E in a computer concentration, and I went to work at an aerospace corporation. And I thought I was just so special. The ego was quite gratified.
Left brain
But
all the way.
yep. And then it wasn't so fun after about several years of this because I was working 90-hour weeks while they were laying people
Wow.
off.
Mhm.
And it
Mhm.
dawned on me, there are people who really love this, who love the engineering problems, and I don't love it. And I don't want to continue to move into management and call people in on weekends and ruin their family lives. It just doesn't feel right. So I said to God, I want to wake up happy, go to bed grateful, and make a living doing something I love, please. And I have no clue what that is. And every time I thought I had a clue, I just flopped. I mean, it just didn't work out. So I finally
Mhm.
surrendered and I said, okay, God, you figure it out. And I started getting guided. And when I say guided, at the time I didn't understand it was guided. I just had these people present information to me on interesting personal development classes and classes on shamanism and past lives. And I thought it was all very interesting. And I would go and I would, kind of read more on it very quietly because back then, being an engineer, these aren't topics we talked about back then. That was years ago. So I was kind of a closet mystic. And one day I actually heard voices saying, turn in your resignation tomorrow. And it was one of the few times I've heard them outside of my head. But I had prayed for the
Mhm.
past 3 years, God, make it obvious when it's time to quit.
Mhm.
And, how much more obvious do you get unless God steps out in front of you? So I went home and I wrote my letter of
Right.
resignation and I gave 6 weeks notice and I quit.
Mhm.
And the following summer, one of my teachers, I had been studying channeling very quietly, basically said, you are going to work this Halloween party with me. You're good and you'll see. Don't worry, it's just entertainment. And I said, no, I can't. I'm not good enough yet. I don't know. And she says, you owe me. You're doing it. So I did readings dressed as a witch at a Halloween party. And in the restroom, this is my big joke, my career began in the restroom. I overheard a lady saying she had had the best reading of her life from the witch in the corner. So and something in me said, see, you can do this and you will do this. And long story short, that was the beginning.
Wow.
I know, it's kind of humorous. Spirit
I love
just
stories
worked
like
on
that.
me.
Yeah. 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 They have such a good sense of humor, don't they?
Oh, thank God. I know, because I went kicking and screaming. I loved learning about all of this and angels and channeling, but the thought of actually having to give people guidance for their lives and, what if I screwed up and all of this, it was terrifying. And after a while, something came through to my mind, which was get over yourself. You asked to help people. Here it is. Just get over
Mhm.
yourself and
Mhm.
trust God.
Mhm. Yeah.
And it was when I just got over myself and stopped, thinking I was the one in charge of it all and started surrendering more to the love that comes through us, that worked. That really
Mhm.
worked.
Mhm.
So it's, and it took me years before I was fully, comfortable. But I tell people, you open the door a crack, and the divine will barge on through, and you'll be happier than you've ever been.
Yeah, it's all
Because
about us getting out of our own way, isn't it?
it really is. Because the minute you have a desire, the universe starts working on it, but it doesn't start working on the form necessarily. It starts working on what you really want in that desire. I really wanted a career that would help people and be good enough to support me, and I didn't know what it was. And there comes the universe with this thing called being an angel communicator that I hadn't in my wildest dreams ever considered. And yet it was perfect. I love it. It
Uh
really
huh.
is, who I am. So
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
tell people when you want something, the universe cares, but it wants to give you the deepest and most beautiful manifestation of what you want, not necessarily what you think it should look like.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of us. Oh, it's got to be this, and
Right, it's got to be this job, this house, this person, this whatever, and I've done it too. I mean, I'm not exempt.
yeah. Yeah.
And it's almost
So
humorous.
have I.
There was once when I forget exactly what I was trying to manifest, but I was very upset that it wasn't working, and I know how to manifest. I teach it. And the angel said, "It's okay. You're just having a tantrum because it doesn't look the way you want." It's like, well, is that all that was, a tantrum? So I settled down and I said, okay, I trust the universe to bring me exactly what I want. And sure enough, oh, I know what it was. It was my house. I was looking for houses. I got up one morning and I thought, this is the day. So I found a house that was almost right. It was $10,000 too much and it didn't have a bathtub. So I'm sitting there just trying to figure out how it's going to work out and disgruntled and, all of this. And the angel said, Ann, first of all, it's not the perfect house for you. It doesn't have the things you asked for, so stop it. Just stop it. And I said, you're right. So I stopped. I surrendered. And within half an hour, the realtor from that house called me up and said, may I send you some listings and adopt you? I said, yeah, sure. The very first listing was the one I'm in now. I drove past it. I loved it. I wondered when I'd get to see it. A client canceled the next morning. The realtor had a cancellation. We met. I saw the house, put an offer, and had it within 2 hours.
That's amazing.
And that was my house hunt. Yeah, but it's so funny how I was just all fussy about the fact that I couldn't find exactly what I wanted the first day. It's so funny. That was years ago. But the angels say, the trusting is also what allows more love to flow into our lives, because if you can really know that you're loved and the universe wants to help you and Mother Earth wants to help you, and there's beings that want to help you, and yet we're all control freaks. It's got to look this way and it's got to happen by this date. And the angels once said it's like a kid hollering for a cookie when mom's about to serve them their entire favorite meal and dessert.
Yeah.
So as we surrender a bit more to that trust and faith, then the process gets to be fun after a while. You get up in the morning and you go, well, let's see what happens today.
Yeah. What magical thing is going to happen today? Yeah.
Exactly. It's so much nicer. And that's
and
the kind of
really...
thing the angels say that makes. Oh, go ahead.
Oh no! Finish what you're going to say.
It makes the earth happy. It makes the earth happy because every mother likes her kids to be happy.
Exactly. And I think we're really asked to be in the moment now. It's just, I never really liked that P word, the planning word, because, I think Carolyn May said, you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans, Yeah,
so, and I have to laugh with you because I was an engineering planner, and right. I think I was in that job because I saw how exquisitely, complicated it was to try to assert our plans over life. It's absolutely true. And the angels say, have intentions. Intentions are a little different than plans. Intentions say, I want to end up in California or wherever you want to end up. That's an intention. A plan says, well, it has to happen by this day, this month. It has to happen this way. And we can try, but sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. And the angels say, if they don't, however, you'll get better, more appropriate.
Right. This or something better.
That's one of my favorites, honestly. It's so true. And the angels say that, even Mother Earth, she's just trying to come back to balance here. They said her intention is never to harm anyone. It's just to come back into balance. If there's too much pressure building up in a certain segment of her, core, she's going to blow. And the angels say because she understands that even if people, were to transition in the explosion, well, she understands where they go. Bliss and beauty.
Yeah.
So it's a different perspective. It's not a malicious one by any means. The angels say we have a tendency to humanize God and other beings, but a lot of them are actually more aware than we are. And the animals,
I would say the majority.
Yeah, well, the animals too. I mean, the animals. People come, with aging animals, for example, and they wonder if they're scared. And the animals are like, "Are you kidding? No, I'm just staying because I'm soaking up the love. And when I transition, it'll just be like dropping a coat and wandering off." So the animals, are very in connection with that reality. And the angels say there's a lot of animals right now that are talking to us, and wanting us to understand how beloved we really are as well.
That's interesting. Why do you think there's so many animals now that are coming through?
Well, I think for starters, there's more animal communicators, but the angels say the animals have always been, if they have a hallmark to them, it's their loving allowance. They allow for things. We have free will. We can allow or reject things, but the animals are very allowing. If you tell a dog they've got to stay in the room, they'll stay in the room. Most of the time they might bark a little and give you a protest, but they settle down and go, okay, well, here's where I am. So they've agreed to be very unconditionally loving with humanity.
Yes.
And to, be there for whatever needs we have. So they're very allowing. Now, some of them have more personality, in terms of than others, but the angels say, in general, the animals are here to share unconditional love with us. I once heard Summer Bacon channel in trance, and the angel that comes through her said, believe it or not, there are animals who incarnate knowing they'll be food animals, and they would just request kind treatment. They don't fear death, and they don't mind giving their bodies, but they request kindness. And I thought that was really interesting, because I've always had a bit of a, tough time with the fact that my body, needs meat occasionally. I'm not fully vegetarian, and do they mind? And a lot of people have that question. And the angel said, no, they don't mind giving their bodies at all. They realize that's not what they are, but they would just ask for kindness. So it's amazing, how this intricate design we have here on this planet. It's amazing.
Yeah, we've forgotten that it all works together and that everything is conscious.
It really is, and the angels say, if you want, they said, Mother Earth likes to give you love too. So they said, don't just sit there and send love to the earth. They said, send her a big heaping dose of love and then breathe it in and receive it back. Because they said, like any mother, like any being, we would like to give all ourselves to feel our love sometimes. We'd love ourselves to know how loved they are. They all operate better. So they said, receive her love too. Just sit there and breathe it in. They emphasize all the time that just by breathing we're a contribution to this planet. Just by breathing we're a contribution to humanity, because we pull beautiful energy in. And it's I think we all know the physical benefits of breathing, but the angels say it's also the way you bring in life force.
Exactly.
Whether you call it prana or chi or energy, it doesn't matter. And it's a way that the universal communicates with the personal. And think of us all like little antennas walking this earth, little cells, charging her up too. So the angels say, by taking care of yourself, by honoring yourself, by being kind to yourself, you are being kind to a much larger reality than just this little thing we think of as us. And they said, if you could imagine, energetically, we're like waves on an ocean. If you imagine the ocean is the consciousness of the divine or the source, the angels say every being, whether it's Mother Earth or you, we're like waves on the ocean. And they said, think of Mother Earth as a big wave, and you're like the rivulets on her. So we're all like pieces and parts, but also always connected to the whole, not separate from it.
Yes.
So the angels say when we say pieces and parts, that implies some separation, but it's not really that way. A wave on the ocean is not just a bucket of water we pulled out of the ocean and scooted along. It's actually the dynamic movement of the ocean in a form. And we are like the dynamic movement of energy, that has a physical form, but our real nature is energetic. So the angels say that's why we say a small person can make a big impact energetically. I'll tell another story. I had a client in Florida who went through a phase where she was, she's in a situation where she was retired, didn't have to work. And she said, all I feel like doing is sitting in the yard and meditating. And the angels said, well, that's a beautiful contribution. Please keep it up. You'll see why later. And, she struggled with our traditional notions of what is productive versus spiritual productivity.
Right, yes.
But she did it anyhow. And lo and behold, later that year, a hurricane went barreling through her area, and all of the houses in her neighborhood were protected.
Oh, wow.
Not a single thing happened. She had put so much peace into that neighborhood through her meditations that there was protection. And you hear these stories. You hear stories about a tornado skipping over a house, or, I personally know a woman who over 20 years ago she was house sitting when a wildfire in California came ripping down the hillside, and she said, I just got on the roof and prayed because I didn't know what else to do, and I prayed for peace, and she said, I woke up half an hour later, and she said, I was fine, the house was fine, and yet there were swaths of burnt area all around.
Mm.
So it's phenomenal, really, the impact that one person with real strong faith in what lives inside of them can create. There was a story in the tsunami. I don't know if you remember 2006, there was a giant tsunami in Indonesia. And I'll never forget this.
Definitely.
Yeah, there was a story of a man who was leading a youth group. He was on the ocean on a boat with these kids. And he saw this giant wave coming, and he said, I didn't know what to do. So, he was very Christian, so he thought of the Bible, and he said he raised his hands, and he said, Jesus commanded the seas to calm, so in the name of Jesus, I command the seas to calm. And somehow they all wrote it out and lived. So there's just story after story on this planet about how people have used prayer and love and, a faith in what lives inside of them. The angels don't like blind faith. It's faith in what lives within you, faith in how the universe operates. That we can calm the storms, we can affect the planet, we can keep major disasters from happening. You mentioned pole shift before the show, and the angels say that, if you even look at the science of it, and this is interesting because I really have never studied them, but the angels say they can happen somewhat more quickly or they can happen gradually over eons. And the gradual ones are the ones that humanity really wouldn't notice too much, whereas a rapid, sudden one could, be a bit more jolting. So the angels say, why not intend that everything happen in a kind way? In a gradual way, and then we don't have to be afraid, because the angels say the worst that happens is you all end up in heaven. Now, we don't see that. They're saying through me, we don't see that.
Yeah.
We don't see disasters of that magnitude, but, the absolute worst case is we're all in Disneyland, right? So
exactly, I know, really.
That kind of removes fear right there. But the angels say we don't see that. We're not trying to cause that fear. We just don't see that. We don't see disasters of that magnitude where, all of humanity would get wiped out.
Well, that's really empowering, because one of the reasons I started this show or doing any of the talks that I do is because there's always something that we can do to mitigate things.
Yeah.
And to feel empowered.
And you mentioned that you had Jane Redding on. She's doing fantastic work with the waters of the earth to heal them and to change their vibration after they've been polluted or treated, unkindly, and it's powerful work. So, she's another example of
incredible.
People taking charge of their, So, your show serves a beautiful purpose, because the listeners, even if you take one thing away from it and you just do one kind thing for yourself every day, and you say, okay, this one's for you, Mother Earth, that makes a difference.
Yeah, lately I've just been really, obviously I I love the earth, and I've been talking to her a lot. And I said, I love you, and I know you love me, and, and show me, what, help me with what's next, and I will accept from you. And, with all that I give to you, I know I need to allow and receive from you, too, to keep the flow going.
Absolutely. And, she draws us to places that are good for us, and that, nurture our spirits better, whether that be a move, whether it be just a day trip. Some days I'll get up and say, okay, Mother Earth, what do you think today?
Right. Yeah.
I did that in May, actually, and I was drawn to a certain spot up north in Sedona, and it ends up I ran into a friend I hadn't seen in ages, and we had a good conversation, and he ended up passing away within 3 months, and that was a beautiful opportunity, to feel that we had a wonderful conversation, and had said what we needed to say, not because he was dying, but because it just was there.
Right. Yeah.
And that's a beautiful example of the earth and the guidance systems, helping us find our way.
Yeah, I remember when I was living in Sedona, it would be like, okay, a road trip, because it was time to get out of the energy for a while, and
Yeah.
and those were the best trips.
I love those unplanned days. Like you have snow days, I call them flow days.
Yeah, exactly. And when I was in college, I called them sanity days.
Oh, yeah. I'll second that one. That's for sure. Oh, my God, yeah. Absolutely. It is, I think of us, we're either in the arteries of the energy or we're fighting against it. And the angels say, just along that note, they're in my head. They said, tell people that you don't always have to get out of town for that. That you can, be sitting at home saying, I really think I should do all these errands, but what I really feel like doing is sitting down and watching YouTube or something. And then you turn on YouTube and you find an educational video that gives you a whole new career direction. So, and I've actually seen that example. So it's important that people realize that the Earth has an energetic circulation just like we do, and we're part of that, and it's part of the cosmos, and that's part of the source. And at every second in time, we're getting guidance that comes through to us. Literally, it's like a positive, loving feeling about what we'd really like to be doing in that moment. And granted, you can't just leave your desk at work, some days. But the angels say, but you can say to yourself, okay, I'm getting guidance to do something outside of work here. Let me pay attention to that and make it happen the first available opportunity. And then you end up in the right place at the right time.
Yeah. I'm curious as to what the angels have to say about the recent climate change protests across the world.
Well, they see it as love, really. They think that protests aren't the most evolved way to effect change because, unfortunately, the focus is so much on what's wrong in many circles that it's not helping what's right. But they're the initial steps. They're the initial steps. Sometimes you have to raise awareness before people can say, well, okay, yeah, I get it. Now what's the solution? So they view it as a step or a stage in awareness, but hopefully not the end of it. They would like people to say, okay, the climate's changing. What are the solutions? What do we do next? And the angels say, they once said through Summer Bacon to me, because I said something about, it seems like we're burning easier these days than we used to as kids, and some of it's age, but, is it all age? And they said, no, a lot of the pollution and the particulates in the air, they said, acts like little reflectors that makes the intensity of the sunlight that lands on us a bit brighter, like little disco ball mirrors. And I thought that was fascinating, So as people, there are people, for example, now there are college students examining how do we get rid of the plastic in the oceans, examining how bacteria can eat the plastics in the oceans. There are people doing wonderful, wonderful research out there as to how we can, positively affect the ecosystem. But they said sometimes it starts with protests. And then hopefully the protests evolve into solutions, because if they just stop at protests, then they're not doing any good. But they said if the protests then become education and then become solutions, then they've served their purpose. Because energetically, what we focus on, we get more of. So the angels say focusing only on the problem just, unfortunately, just reinforces the problem.
Yeah, that's why I don't sign the petitions and all of that. I just focus on what I'm choosing.
Yeah, I sit there every day and literally put energy towards, anytime somebody brings a beautiful solution to my attention, I'll send them love and energy and, really try to empower that. And there's lots of little things each of us can do for the climate. As simple as buying biodegradable detergent if you can, or just the angels say, or using things that are recyclable. Or and again, they're not preaching that we're good if we do and bad if we don't, because they don't even have any judgments. But they said for people who care about the climate, they said start with the climate in your own home. Start by creating a loving climate. Start by looking at the areas where we can cut back on waste. And again, it's not a good, bad, right, wrong. You're good if you do this and bad if you don't. But they said if people feel very passionate about the climate, then they should start in their own homes. How do we start to change anything? We start local, right?
Exactly. It always begins with us.
Yeah. So while I know it's necessary, it's necessary that people lobby governments and educate and all of that, because they're called to it for a variety of our spiritual educational reasons. But the angels say the deeper change is always made starting at home, starting with self. They said if everybody looked at where they're polluting the atmosphere with criticism and self-judgment, they said that in itself would change things.
Yeah. I wonder how much of the other pollution would be cleaned up.
Well, they said it's an interesting thing. If there were self-love on the planet, then people would look around and say, I want clean air to breathe. I love myself.
Self, yeah,
What
exactly.
can we do about it?
Mm-hmm.
And the angels say it would just be a different scenario. But we're not there yet. So they said, rather than despairing, they said everybody just start with themselves and know that they make a difference.
Mm-hmm.
And again, we can start physically making changes, and that's necessary. We're in bodies. But they said don't forget the energetic component, or the changes are going to be transitory. Because ultimately what we want to do is raise our own awareness so that the whole consciousness raises up, and that, there are more groups wanting solutions. The angels say, for example, if you yell at someone and tell them, how could you throw that piece of paper on the road? You're a terrible person. Well, they're just going to reinforce their own lack of self-worth, and they don't care about themselves, and they don't care about anybody else either. They said, but if you see someone throw something on the street and you go pick it up and you say a prayer and say they must not know any better, they said that person might see you and think twice next time. So it starts with the smallest acts, but the angels say it's the energy underneath those acts that has of far greater import. And it's hard to believe that. It's very hard to believe that because we're still living in a Newtonian reality rather than a quantum reality, in terms of how we act and live and believe. And yet the angels say you do live in an energetic reality where every single action has an energetic ripple into the entire field. So that, as we grow as a human race, more and more we're going to realize the importance of our thoughts and our feelings and the energy we're emitting even more than the actions we're doing. They both count. But the angels say permanent change occurs when you change the field.
I'm wondering what the angels have to say about governments that seem to be very unstable right now. And
yeah, well, they have a different opinion than most, and they view, first of all, they view the individuals in the governments as souls who agreed to live out their lessons in front of everybody for a variety of reasons. And they said, and if you look at a government, they said it really is a reflection of the majority consciousness, whether we want to agree with that or not. Yeah. And so they said, as you watch the government, they said, or any news, or anyone else for that matter, the angels say, look at that person or that government and just ask yourself, does that reflect me in any way? What can I learn from it? For example, our current leader is creating a lot of reflections, and whether people love him or hate him, it's bringing up issues. If people grew up in families that felt fight is right, they're all for it. If people grew up in families that were, domineering and bigoted and they didn't like it, well, then they don't like him. And the angels say it's not so much about that person or that government as it is how do you relate to that, because ultimately Earth is a school and we're here to grow. And they says you can relate to these people with a love for the light within them, but not like them as human beings. You don't have to like them. The angels say God never asks everybody to like everybody else. If you went to a buffet, you wouldn't like every bit of food on it, and that's not, they once said, if you go for the salmon, are you judging the roast? On a buffet, you're not. So you just simply might not like one, or vice versa. So they said we don't have to like everybody else. Yeah, they said we wish you'd look at life and humanity as a buffet and say which ones do I like and which ones do I belong around and which ones do I not care for, and therefore I should either pray for or avoid. And they said in that way you would find your own peace and joy. They said if everybody was able to do that, they said it would rearrange borders and nations, but people would end up in like enclaves of like mind.
Yes.
Now, so what do we do in the meantime? Because we're so not there yet. Just as a human race, there's a need to do battle, right? Yeah. But the angels say, look at the governments, and the ones you like, empower them, and the ones you don't like, either lovingly educate, kindly educate, pray, picture something different, do your lobbying if you're called to it, But they said, whatever you do, please don't crucify each other, because they said that's what's ripping the earth apart. Like our current president, some love him, some hate him, but he, in an objective sense, is what happens when you take an overactive little boy and ship him off to boarding school, and he says, well, I wasn't loved, so I'm going to prove myself and be better than my dad and build bigger buildings. Well, that's not enough, so now I've got to, be a president because I have to prove that I'm somebody. And the angels say, so he too is living his lessons.
Yeah, and it's kind of sad. I mean, to see it play
Yeah.
out in front of the world stage, I mean, I do have
Yeah.
compassion for him for that,
Yeah.
like,
The angels say it takes a lot of courage to volunteer for a public education. We'll put it that way.
yeah, right. And when he got elected, I thought, well, we chose the accelerated path, thinking
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean,
going to be a
it's
lot of
an
change.
interesting thing because the energy is how can I put it? We were ready for evolution, and sometimes
Yeah, yeah.
evolution is messy. Sometimes we have to, like we said with
Mhm.
protests,
Mhm.
sometimes we have to look at the problems and really face them head on before the solutions become apparent. And the angels say a lot of these things that you're seeing in radio and TV now and on cell phones, they've been there for thousands of years. It's just public now.
Yes, yes. People are just
You
waking
know,
up to it now.
the facade has been ripped away.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
the angels say it's not
Yeah.
so much that we live in these horrible times as it is that we live in these times when it's highly visible, and it's that's when we know it's time to make some changes inside of ourselves. The angels once said in a group, if you don't like the president, then don't empower your inner Trump.
Mhm. Mhm.
Don't go being bigoted against him and hating him. They said pray.
Right. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
again, that's not
Yeah.
a political statement either way. I don't like to, quote, take sides. I can't do that anymore because I work with angels, and they don't take sides. They take
Sides.
one
Right.
side,
Yeah.
love.
Yeah. Mhm. Mhm.
Love, kindness.
And
That doesn't mean, and again,
yeah.
that doesn't mean you got to like anything. It's just all about the fact that the angels say, educate, don't attack. They just beg us all the time, educate, don't attack. Set an example.
Mhm.
But the
Mhm.
attacks never changed anyone. They once said, Ann, tell people, since when has somebody trying to beat something in your head ever worked? Doesn't.
Exactly.
We just
No.
rebel.
No. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
people, they said, however, when people treat each other kindly, that's humbling,
Mhm. Mhm.
and that's what teaches. So it's all starting from the inside out. We can, each one of us is so much more powerful and impactful and significant than I think we've been giving ourselves credit for. And
Yes.
I think it's
Yes.
important that if you're a listener, you say, you know what, I do make a difference, even if I can't see it. I have a ripple effect, and to the degree that I love, I have a greater and greater ripple effect.
Mhm. Mhm.
And
Yep.
that makes you significant. That makes you powerful. That makes you, a voice for change, if not a physical voice, an energetic voice. The angels once said, we vote with our vibration far more than we do in the polls. you know, the energy we emit has a far more impactful and stronger effect on
Exactly.
reality and
Yeah.
mass
Yeah.
consciousness, and than
Uh-huh.
just what blank you fill in the polls.
Mhm. 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 Because
So
it
they,
does
I don't know.
literally ripple out. Yeah. We're living
Oh
in a
yeah, it
sea of
does. I mean,
electromagnetic fields, and your field interacts with every heart's field is connected to everyone else's, is connected to the earth, and yeah.
yeah. Well, the angels say, for example, your listeners could do an easy little experiment. They said most everyone has somebody that they care about who's going through a tough time. They said every day you could take this person that's going through a tough time and you could picture them happy and healthy and on the other side of their challenge and filled with light, and you could telepathically send them a message, I have faith in you, you can do it, you're strong, I'm with you, God's with you. And the angels say, and bombard them with positive messages, positive energy, positive light, even if you never talk to them, and see what happens. The angels say if they
Mhm.
even have the slightest inclination to receive help, that will help. Now, if they're
That's
really
beautiful.
attached to their condition, there's nothing we
Mhm.
can do. But most people want a little help.
Mhm. It's like an active prayer.
It
I was
is, and it's
thinking.
for example, if someone's ill, picture them well, because
Mhm.
they may
Mhm.
not be able to do it enough for themselves at that time.
Right, because it takes a lot of energy to be able to do that. Yeah,
Yeah.
and there was
Well, that.
there's a healing group in China that would just come into the hospitals, and they would just, Greg Braden would talk about this.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, and say wasa, 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 and all they would do is picture them whole and complete and well, and they were able to keep that frequency so pure, and that vision and vibration so pure that they even showed it on uh, not a CT
There was a
scan, but
video years ago, wasn't it? Yeah,
yes,
it was
yes,
a
yes,
scan
in
where you could
real
actually see the
time,
tumor shrinking.
you see the tumor
Wow.
shrinking. Yes, and you could see the tumor shrinking. It was on
I forgot
Doppler.
about that. Wow,
Yeah, and you
perfect,
could see
perfect.
it shrink. So yes, so it's the power, and I really believe, and there's this book Lynn McTaggart put out that was brought to my attention again the other night, The Power of Eight, of getting these small groups together, but it really exponentially, I think, increases the energy,
Yes,
and you can
absolutely.
create these miracles just by focusing that energy.
Absolutely. I mean, we're all familiar with the quote, wherever two or more are gathered, there I am. It's
Yeah,
one
yeah,
person's powerful, two people pointing their minds in the same direction even more so. And, that's
yeah.
why you hear thousands of stories of miracles when people were praying for others. It's absolutely amazing what can be accomplished. And the angels say, can you imagine if everybody would picture our Earth, with a population living in harmony and living in homes that had, eco-friendly designs, and and picturing people passing one another and smiling. I had a little vision the other day in a meditation of, thousands of years from now, where people would look at each other and recognize God in human form and say, isn't this amazing that we can be down here in so many different parts and pieces, and enjoying this interaction and being so loving to everybody. It was just, I woke up out of that space and just felt like, oh, that's beautiful. Just
Yeah,
beautiful.
yeah.
I've had visions of future cities where they're in concentric circles with giant parks in between each ring and plants growing on all the buildings, and clean, and with like rail type transportation that was different. It was suspended somehow, but just there will be a future where this planet is honored and people are honored, and we're just not there yet. We're not mature as a human
No,
race yet.
yeah.
But we're helping it grow up. People listening to your show want to help. They're part of the change.
Yes, and that's why we're here, to be part of
Absolutely.
that
And
change.
yeah, we signed up for it, and it was really exciting because this is a very pivotal time on Earth. This is a time on Earth when
That it is.
relationships are changing. If you look at the balance of the masculine and feminine energy, it's outpictured. That change is outpictured everywhere. The Earth used to be seen as a thing you could just take from. The woman who's in the kitchen, serving all day, for example.
Right.
And
Yes.
the paradigm is shifting, with a more equal partnership between masculine and feminine, between head and heart, between men and women, between Earth and humanity. And the angels say, and so, if you think of it this way, the divine feminine is asserting itself a bit more, not over the divine masculine, but in partnership with it. And what that means to each of us, on a very low level, is the head and the heart are starting to try to want to cooperate.
And
we're starting to listen to our hearts more. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the way it was intended to be.
Absolutely.
Because we see what living up in the head it does. We see it. We just look
well, the
around.
angels say
And
the head is useful. If you have a desire and you're trying to figure out how to manifest it, and you get some guidance, well, then the head can go to town, and take action. But the angels say when there's a mutiny, that's when we run into problems.
Yeah,
when the head takes over.
when you don't consult the heart.
Yeah, exactly. Then the head can only go so far. But it's no different with Mother Earth. The angels say, she's willing to give and give and give, and even self-clean in so many ways. But we have to recognize that she needs emotional nurturing and love, the same way, most women need in relationships. So it's, as above, so below. And the angels saying, but it's a beautiful time on this earth because there is growth happening, and there is evolution, and it's clunky and it's awkward, and sometimes it's downright painful, but it's still happening. We're growing. And so they want to encourage us, not discourage us. They want to say you're courageous. They like to say Earth is one tough school, but at the same time, if you can master loving people on this earth, well, then you've got it. Easy to love when you're in heaven. It's a piece of cake.
Yeah.
But when you can really love on the earth, the angels say, we would equate it to lifting weights. If you want to become strong, you lift heavier weights. But, it's very easy to lift light weights. So live and learn. But the angels say it's a courageous act to come incarnate on this earth, where you're courageous for being here. You're courageous for, being willing to stick around during the tough times. And the angels say, but it's in our opinion, a very exciting time to be alive.
That it
at a
is.
time when the potential for change is so beautiful and huge. So, they encourage us. They never ever want to discourage us. They want to encourage us. They want us to know we're loved, we're helped. Every person who prays for the earth allows the angels to work even more strongly because we have free will. We have to ask. So the angels say we can do, somewhat, some. But if you ask us for help, we can do even more. So, even a simple prayer makes a difference.
Well, I'd ask all the listeners then to take a moment to say a prayer for Mother Earth after this show.
Yeah.
However, your heart guides you.
Yeah, that would be beautiful. They said just tons of light moving out. They said we see it ahead. They said so many beautiful souls listening in, so many beautiful souls sending love. And they said, and she loves you right back. Don't forget to take that moment to feel it back to you.
Yes, to feel it back, yes. I remember the Unity Breath meditation that Drunvalo used to teach, Drunvalo Melchizedek.
Oh, okay.
Excuse me. Yes, and it was always, to give her your love, but she always sends it back to you.
Oh, that's
There's
beautiful.
always
yeah,
an exchange. It's a beautiful meditation, and I think he shares that pretty freely. You can look it up.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because the angels say it's energy flowing is healthy energy, whether it's to you, from you, for you. As long as it's in flow, it's healthy. Just like water.
Yes. We don't want to become stagnant. We always want to be in the flow.
No, absolutely. So,
anything
do you have
else?
Any questions? Let me see. Okay. Well,
anything
the angels
else?
say they said it's not selfish for people to take care of themselves. I know they mentioned that before, but they said people seem to think that they need to be doing something all the time. And they said, and we're just going to remind you one more time that being happy, being healthy, allowing yourself rest, allowing yourself recreation, allowing yourself to be in a high vibration is always a great contribution. So if people aren't out, say, cleaning up the oceans or doing whatever they feel they should or want to do, in a larger sense, the angels say, go easy on yourself, take care of yourself, do what you can where you're at, but understand that your joy in and of itself is a contribution. They said, what mother doesn't feel better watching her children enjoy?
Enjoy. Exactly.
And they said, and Mother Earth is no exception. She loves love of any form. So they said, we want you to be very aware that while we honor everybody who's doing physical acts to help this planet, they said we also honor the people who are simply living lives in the most love and joy that they can possibly find, because they said that too is a contribution. So they don't want anyone to think that has to look a certain way versus another. They said it's all about the energy. And I know we've said that a lot, but I know a lot of people tend to feel guilty if they can't do more. The angels say try to be more. Don't worry so much about doing more. Try to be more. Be more loving. Be more kind. Because they said in that you'll contribute. Yeah. And you know what? They said, and enjoy the journey. They're heating me up like crazy. They said, believe it or not, even though it can be tough, even though it can be crazy out there with your politics and everything, the angels say you can still have a good day. You can get up in the morning and say, well, I'm going to make the best day out of this day no matter what the world's doing. And the angels say that we see millions of people who really get up in the middle of wars and in the middle of disasters, and they still have a good day. They said there are people who have fatal diseases that decide to have a good day every day. So, it's we're not supposed to be morose just because there are challenges happening. And I think that's certainly nothing any of us were taught, that it's okay to be happy in the middle of, craziness.
Exactly. Well, what's wrong with you? Yeah.
Yeah. And the angels say, what's right with you?
Yeah.
Do you want to stay dragged down with everybody else, or do you want to pull them all up? So, permission to be happy, permission to be joyful, regardless of what's going on in the world.
Yeah, because that's exactly what the world needs.
It really does. And the angel's saying you'll be the spark then that lights up others, and you'll be the one that says, well, you know what, I can't change politics, so I might as well just be nice today. And maybe I'll smile at one person in the grocery store and change a life, which affects hundreds of thousands over the course of a lifetime, and never see the ripple effect till I die, but that was pretty impactful. So they go on and on about the significance of our small changes.
Well, it's a wonderful reminder that we all make large impacts from small things,
Yeah.
and we all have the power to do it. And
Yeah, and
that's
it doesn't
really
have to be huge. It doesn't have to be acknowledged. It
no,
doesn't have to be something where you ever even see the ripple effect of it.
no.
Yeah, the
Like you
angels say
said.
there are people who just go and they quietly bless a place.
Mhm. Mhm.
Maybe maybe they're tourists and they visit a place and, oh dear God, thank you so much for the majesty of this place and thank you for the people who preserved it. And
Mhm.
they said, and right in that moment, they're connected straight to God with that love and appreciation, and they are channeling and funneling through huge amounts of light into the atmosphere and into the energetic system of the earth. And they said it's something so simple, they don't even think about it. But they said if they could
Uh
see it
huh.
from our reality, they said, bring us to tears. It's allowing love to flow. So it
Well,
can
I
be
hope
simple.
that everybody that's listening today or later in the podcast will do that. Take a little time today to spread the love, spread the light. Start with yourself. Be grateful for everything, even what's happening, because it's changing us. We need to change. This is good.
Yeah, you can't heal the disease till you know you have it.
That's right. So.
So the angels say it's a great time to be alive, and try not to get too sucked into everybody's opinions of what should be great and what shouldn't. They said try instead to say, we are here now because the earth is shifting, and it's trying to facilitate and empower us to shift individually because it's a school. And we're here to learn, and we're here to grow in love. And the angels say, and if you can master loving on earth, they said, you've got it anywhere.
And
This
I
is the
believe that.
toughest.
So.
Yeah, because this is the toughest
This
reality
is really
in which
challenging
to.
right now,
Yeah,
especially these
it
times
is.
right now. Very challenging
Yeah,
for
so
a
they
lot of
acknowledge
people.
that. But they said, think of it
Yeah.
like a video game. The kids with the video games love the challenges. Makes them
Mhm.
stronger and
Mhm.
smarter. And they said some of those kids are trying to teach us, look, this is what life is about. It's about working us, towards levels of mastery. So
Mhm.
even that serves a purpose.
Mhm.
They just go on. I'm sorry, they get in my head and they get going. They get a soapbox and they talk about it, but they're just so excited about the fact that you're sharing this. It's really beautiful, and the angels saying it's coming through many mouths and many minds in many different ways.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
it's not a new
Mhm.
message. It's a message as old as time. But the angels say it's very
Right.
pertinent, however, right now.
Mhm. Mhm. We all could use reminders.
Yep. Just reminders, because we get sucked into, what can we do? What can we do that's going to make a huge impact? And the angels say, sit and picture the
Mhm.
earth filled with light and let the love amplify in your heart and get stronger and stronger and stronger. And then I said, there, you've made a big impact. And this
And
is
so we all
hilarious
can do
because as
that.
I'm talking, the storms are completely gone and there
Yeah.
are clouds
Yeah.
like, miles away, and it's beautiful and sunny. So that's a good
Well, it's
sign,
not
huh?
sunny here, but the storm is gone. The storm has
Yeah,
passed.
that's
So,
funny.
so there's a great analogy for everyone that
Yeah.
the storm has passed. Whatever storms you see in your life right now, you can take a moment and raise the vibration and say, I choose sunshine. I see the joy in my life, and I'm going to focus on that, and I'm going to send love and gratitude to everything in my life.
Yeah, and they're asking me to share this quick little story. Sometimes when I go
Okay?
hiking, I can't change major storm systems, but there are times when there's scattered clouds, and I will literally drive up north saying in the car, I am the sun that burns the clouds away. And I'll think of everyone I love and everything I love, and I'll be praying, and I'm the sun that burns the clouds away, and I'll get up there, and my hike will be in total sunshine. And that's what you were saying, that we can be that light, literally, metaphorically. We affect the atmosphere, we affect the earth changes, we affect everything. And the angels say, so can you imagine, 7 billion souls committed to being, the peace in the storm and the light in the darkness? They said, there you go. They said it would completely change your climate.
Mhm. Mhm.
So
Well.
just a few funny stories about how how this really does work.
Mhm. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today, Ann. This was wonderful. What a nice,
Thank
light,
you.
beautiful. I try to mix up the show so that it's not too heavy, and we get some light going here. And this was just what the doctor ordered, and I'm so
Well,
happy
thank
that
you.
you joined us today. And it's interesting. Jude Valentine is our resident astrologer, and she'll be with us next month to talk about the astrology of October. What she said about the astrology of September was that we should use joy as our litmus test.
Really, I
It
love
brings
that.
us,
Oh, that's so
yeah,
perfect.
yeah. So for this month, if it brings you joy, then do it. And the
Yes.
angels confirm that today. So that's wonderful.
Oh, that's funny because I didn't even know we were going to talk about that. But it's true. Joy is such a high vibration, and I know people who are grieving and going through tough times may not be able to feel joy, but the angels say perhaps they can feel a little peace, a little contentment here and there. So, they're compassionate. They understand the human condition, but they said wherever you're at, try to stretch a little higher.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Joan. This was a
angels,
lot of fun. Great energy.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Archangel Michael. My friend of mine that I taught Reiki to, and she goes, "Your buddy Mike is here," and I knew exactly who she was talking.
We
about.
like Mike, yeah.
I like Mike. Yeah. So thank
That's
you.
why
Archangel
you and I were
Michael.
burning up. That's why we were both getting angel flashes before the show. He's one warm angel.
So I have to say thank you to Archangel Michael too. So and thank you to the audience today for tuning in, or if you're listening later in the podcast. And next Tuesday is the beginning of October. And like I said, Jude will be here to talk about the astrology of October. So tune in then. Thank you, everyone. Much love, and enjoy the rest of this Tuesday.